Alright guys, welcome back to Yo Spilt, and today, as you can already tell, we have the PT Cruiser all apart. We have the motor out. We're going to do a time lapse for you guys, showing you pulling the cams off, pulling the timing belt that we put on it off, pulling the head off, and figuring out what exactly is wrong with this. So the reason we originally bought this thing was for the transmission and motor. As you guys can tell, trailer park, SRT4, well, it's actually a PT Cruiser swap. We have that Shadow that just came on the dyno, which was T3. We have a lot of other turbo Dodges that we plan on SRT4 swapping. Our other Spirit's gonna have an SRT4 swap. So us having extra bottom ends laying around is gonna be a good thing for us. We can throw pistons and rods in it. We can do whatever we need to do to keep the cars competitive and running. We plan on getting or taking as many of them to Sadak, the event for the Shelby Dodge people, as we can. So if we break one or do anything wrong, we should have an extra 1 or 2 or 3 bottom ends. So over the last 2 days, we've been stripping the PT Cruiser. There's literally nothing in it. The wiring harness is out, the clutch pedal is out, everything is out. And we are going to give those parts to my father so he can 5-speed swap his PT Cruiser, because we've posted a video a long time ago. He has an automatic PT Cruiser, BWS nitrous kit, and it broke the automatic transmission. He's gonna rebuild it and try to get it to go. But if it doesn't work, we're gonna have the 5-speed transmission, clutch, pedals, and everything waiting for him. So you see it's already on the dolly, it's already stripped. Let me get you guys on the time lapse and let's pull this motor apart and see what's actually wrong with it. So it blew water out of the thermostat, the radiator cap hole, and it also had no compression. So once we got it to run that one time in the video a couple of months ago, and then we tried to get it to run again, it would never run. We threw a little race gas in it, it got it to start, but then it would never run after that. So we did pulls, it felt decently strong. So I'm gonna assume blown head gasket and burnt exhaust valves. That's a big problem with these motors. So let's get into tearing the motor apart, and then after we have it apart, we'll get back to you and see all the damage. Alright guys, so after that time lapse, I'm gonna show you exactly what was broken. So I actually just hoped it was like a burnt valve or something that was causing the compression to blow by, but it turned out to be something a little worse. So yeah, I'll show you what broke, explain to you a few things on the SRT4 that you guys might not know, and then show you the difference with the transmission as well. So first thing first, here's the cylinder head. If you were watching the time lapse and figured out how I pulled it off without taking the cams out, I had already did that off of videos. You pull all the 12 and 10 millimeters out of the top, pull the cam caps off, pull the head bolts out. I believe they're 14 millimeter, and then you can put the cams back in and everything, and it holds everything in place. But you look at the cylinder head like this, you don't see anything, you know, particular that sticks out. But if you notice, these exhaust valves right here are a little whiter than the rest of them. If you look right here, let me see if it'll focus. There you go. This cylinder head is actually cracked. So, a little backstory. The person that we, come on, focus. The person that we had purchased the PT Cruiser from, we had heard some stories after we got the car and we brought it home. A few of my friends that are local told me stories about the guy beating on it really bad, it's smoking really bad, and they always told me that it didn't run really well. So when I threw the timing belt on it and everything, I really wasn't expecting anything too fantastic, just because of the stories I heard about it overheating and him just dumping water in it and racing people. So I was actually expecting nothing to be salvageable, but as you guys heard in the video, this thing ran. It started up and ran. So for one, cracked cylinder head. 2, we'll go over to the block, and everything looks alright-ish. You can tell the top of the block had gotten pretty hot. But if you look right here on this piston particularly, come on camera, good old G7X, you can see that there's chunks of metal attached to the top of the piston. Well, right here looks like a valve hit. So I'm assuming if we pull that cylinder head apart, those valves on that cylinder that are cracked, either that cylinder ate a plug and it fell down in the motor and then ate it, and then it got stuck in the valve leaving, and then it hit the valve right here. So as you know, these motors are pretty resilient, but yeah, definitely had lots of issues on that cylinder. And then another thing that is odd or interesting is a dual mass clutch. So if you guys have ever heard me talk about dual mass or single mass, so a single mass clutch means that your clutch and your clutch surface right here, that your clutch actually sets against, is all one piece. So when companies make dual mass, you can see this right here actually moves. So this is your basically backing plate. You have like a flex plate style that hooks to your crankshaft, and then this backing plate hooks to the flex plate. This gives your starter a place to start. And then you have the secondary plate, which is not solidly attached. It's actually like spring loaded, and that's what your clutch actually rides on. The reason why companies do this is so that the engagement of the clutch is super smooth, so it doesn't have a jittery feel or anything like that. It gives it some play. Well, the problem with that is once you start doing really high performance driving and stuff, you have to delete the dual mass and go to a single mass, because these are known for braking. And also they aren't rated for that much torque. And as you guys seen in trailer park, if we turn one of these 2.4s up, you can make about 500 wheel torque on a stock short block. Well, literally a stock motor. The head studs are strong, the block's cast iron, the head's aluminum, besides this one being extremely overheated. So these motors are really resilient. So for people to hurt these motors or blow them up, that's their own doing. That's nothing, the motor did. Because if simple maintenance is done to these motors, you can make 500 wheel torque, never have a problem with a basic turbo setup. So the biggest thing about a PTGT, and the most wonderful thing about a PTGT, but also the kind of caveat to a PTGT, you have hydraulic clutch, which is like an SRT4, internal bearing, that input shaft right there. So the biggest downfall on Neon SRT4s is that input shaft. Once you make around 450 to 500 wheel horsepower and same torque, you start snapping those input shafts in half. Now, of course, Liberty does make one. They're always on back order. Can't ever get them. And they're just a pain. I personally have never seen anyone break a PTGT input shaft. I've been on the forums for years, always had everybody talk about them, but I've never seen somebody break one. But this transmission also doesn't mount directly into an SRT4. You have to change a bunch of stuff and modify all kinds of stuff to get it to fit. So you usually don't, put a PTGT transmission in a SRT4. But we are keeping this transmission. Like I said, we do plan on this, at least the short block we know is good. Transmission we know is good. We drove on it. So turbo manifold also doesn't have a crack in it. So if you guys find any SRT4 turbo manifolds or PTGT turbo manifolds, and actually it looks like it's cracked right there. So if you find any clean manifolds, those are actually becoming pretty rare to source. Cylinder heads usually don't break. This motor has some extreme abuse. You can even see the nasty rust water that was in it. So the block is savable, transmission is savable, turbo manifold, trash, head, trash. We'll save the cams out of it, the rockers. Other than that, everything on this motor will go in the junk pile. The oil filter with the water cooler, we save that just to go with the oil pan. Crank pulley, all that stuff is good. But basically just wanted to make a video showing you guys PT Cruiser turbo motor tear down. Pistons and rods are exactly the same as a SRT4, which is the same as all the other 2.4s, and pretty much the only difference is, the turbo pistons are a little bit different than the all motor Stratus pistons. But if you want to make your 2.4 Stratus motor or your Caravan motor that was never intentionally designed for boost, able to hold 450 horsepower, literally all you got to do is buy a Stratus motor, find you some OEM SRT4 pistons and rods for rather cheap on Facebook Marketplace, swap them in there, and then you can turbo it, and it'll eat. Like I said, trailer park is the perfect example. 430 wheel, 500 foot-pounds of torque, and that motor is stock. So if you throw a set of pistons and rods and you stick a little turbocharger on your Caravan, your Stratus, or anything that comes with a 2.4, should have no problems making at least 400 wheel on E85. So that'll conclude this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. We got 2 new cars that I kind of want to stick on the dyno before we get to tearing them apart. So that might be the next video or Carlisle video. So I did sign up the Juke for the import, basically import meet at Carlisle, PA. I'm going to be doing autocross as well. So hope you guys are ready for that one, and Freedom Fractum 2021. Shout out to Cletus. That event at Indy was ridiculous. Now after I've seen it on video, there had to be at least 10,000 people there. That is goals, man. Like, you're killing it. You kill the YouTube game, you and Whistling Diesel. So as always, if you haven't subscribed to YoSpill, please subscribe below and leave a comment. What do you think about the damage to the PT-GT motor? You guys seen us rip it. So it ripped like that on 3 cylinders. Have a great one, and as always, you guys are the greatest.